Hello everybody, it's the Gruppeteer and I'm back again with another episode of Cartoons versus Cancer. And today's episode, it's a very special one. We are with Mr. Shannon Tindle today, who is the creator of Kubo and the Two Strings and the Google VR project, which is totally how you communicate that word, on ice. Hello Shannon, welcome to the show.
Hello, thanks so much for having me. Very excited to be on.
Well, thank you for wanting to come on. And as you know, Shannon can't be in the studio with us today. I've summoned him through my amazing origami skills. Strangely enough, you can find a way to summon him through WikiHow. It's pretty strange how that works. Anyway, this show, of course, is to help raise money for my friends' post-cancer treatment and the Dana-Farber Boston Institute of Children's Health. So if you are interested in donating, which you really should be, please check the link in the description below. It'll be open the entire time. And if you have any questions for Shannon, then same in the comments and we'll ask him. And I guess the first question is, are you any good at origami?
No, I'm horrible at it, but that's why I hired my wife to work on the film.
Oh, yeah.
Megan, who is actually really great at both origami and kirigami, which is cut paper. So she's an incredible paper artist who's done a lot of stuff for Imagineering and did work on the film and Cartoon Network and DreamWorks and all these different places. So I hired someone who actually knows what they're doing.
Yeah. Do you know if it's possible to make the soldier or the little red samurai that's in the film?
Well, Meg, actually, we were in Mexico at a conference in October, and she actually did a demo where people brought their stuff and they could actually make Hanzo origami in the demo. So yeah, she's actually got a pattern that she can follow to show people how to make it.
Wow, because I tried to Google it, and of course I thought I could make one. I could barely make this hat, so a little more training. So Kubo, of course, is the project that got you into the big light. But the project that really rings for me is something we don't talk about much on this show much, and that's VR projects. On ice, which is a sort of, would you call it a simulator? It's a
well, because it's an interactive film.
Yeah.
So there are, it's different than putting a VR headset on because you watch it on your phone, you experience it on your phone. And for people who don't know, they should know, they can download the Spotlight Stories app for free, and they can download all the films for free. And you're essentially the camera. So you're placed in the middle of the action, and you can turn around, you can look up and down. You can't step through it the way you would a VR experience. Although some have been ported to VR, but yeah, it was a very different experience from what I'm used to in some ways, and very similar to things I'm used to in other ways.
Yeah, because I have people and I ask them, what do you think is the future of animation and all that stuff? But I'd really like to know, do you think that VR and interactive movies play a really big role in the future of animation?
I think content is what drives all this stuff. I think. I don't know that nobody's found, I don't think anybody's really made any money off of it yet. I haven't, because it's so new and it's still it's still pretty expensive to get into. People have not, there hasn't been that one big thing that everybody's talking about. There's something that's coming out from Oculus Story Studio that I hear is pretty incredible, but it's a very new medium, and it's a new business, and so people are trying to find out how they experience it. We're used to watching films as a communal activity, and with VR, it can be very isolating. Unless you like with the Spotlight Stories, is what I loved about it is you'll find if you're holding your phone up and you're doing it, people will gather around you to watch it. Yeah. But if you put a VR headset on, you're kind of in the middle of it. And I think people are just trying to get used to that.
Yeah. I think all forms of medium are something you'd have to get used to, especially very, interesting and new forms of medium. Segue, stop motion animation, the thing that you obviously made Kubo in, was the way that I guess Leica does everything, because they're always stepping up their game. The thing with Kubo is that the way that it's done is not completely, how am I going to word this? Not completely puppets. It's done with green screen. It's done with, it's done with some CGI, some background characters and stuff like that. And the question that I hear a lot, I know Tim Burton actually proposed this to somebody at the CTN Expo once. If something can become so real looking that it looks like it's made by CGI, do you still think that it's worth making in stop motion?
I think it is. There's debate on it, and there are varying tastes on it.
Yeah.
You know, the current feeling, you know, with I think there's a preference at Leica to do very, very smooth, slick, clean stop motion animation.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Henry Selick. I've worked with Henry, and Henry's preference is to kind of show that it's okay to have the flaws in it, to have it strobe and pop a little bit. That's a matter, you know, I think it's a matter of philosophy. I still think that that there are things that you get with lighting. There are accidents that happen that don't happen so easily when you're rendering lighting. You know, there are accidents that happen in CG. Trust me, that you don't want to happen. But there are things that can happen because it's a natural thing. Because there are found materials, you might get ideas that you wouldn't have because you're limited to a certain amount of materials that you can use. For example, if you look at Monkey in the film, the choices that were made to get her fur on screen made her look a certain way. If you'd rendered it in CG, you'd probably just make it look like fur. That's probably what would happen. And it wouldn't have this kind of a texture to it.
Yeah.
But then you watch a Lego movie that looks like it was a stop motion Lego movie. So I don't know. I just know that Leica really likes to, and they're calling them at this point hybrid films. They're not calling them straight up stop motion films because the facial performances are CG performances that are printed out on rapid prototyping machines. There's still a lot of handmade good that goes into it, but I would also say like the CG department at Leica is exceptional. It's why they got the Oscar nomination for VFX this year, which hasn't happened since Nightmare Before Christmas. And the reason they got it is because they are just exceptional at working with the practical department and coming up with their own solutions. So there's a bit of magic that happens between those two departments that you wouldn't see at just a purely CG driven studio.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I get that. And by the way, Kubo is nominated for 2 Oscars right now. Congratulations to Shannon and any members of the team watching this. Good job, you guys. Proud of you. So obviously Kubo is your creation, and you've said a whole bunch of times that it comes from a very personal place, you know, a story about I think your mother-in-law. But my question is, you know, that kind of explains Kubo's relation with his mother. Would you mind telling me how Monkey and Beetle worked their way into that story?
Yeah, so what happened is when I met my wife, and like she kind of ran me through a test. I knew that she had to take care of her mother, but I didn't know why. And so she brought me to her house to meet her mother and basically see how I would react to somebody who has dementia. And her mom, people have certain kind of misconceptions, I think, about dementia. Her mom was very smart, very funny, very intelligent. I really loved to spend a lot of time with her, and I passed the test. I think her mom and I hit it off right off the bat. At the time that we were, you know, I kind of passed the test, so I wasn't a jerk. I liked her mom, and I got along with her mother, and our relationship started to grow. I was also reading Japanese folktales at the time. So I actually created a story that was a metaphor for what was going on with Meg, and what I saw as an outsider is this young woman who was having to take care of her mother rather than vice versa. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if it were more like a fable, so that you could tell it through a fairy tale? So I started to read things like Kwaidan is a famous collection of Japanese folk tales. It was translated by Lafcadio Hearn in the 19th century. So I was reading those stories, and then I started to look at how I would introduce those characters in the film. And you want it to be magical, and fables many times have talking animals in it. So does Disney. So there was a play on that as well. Yeah. But hey, how can we do that in a different way? What I was inspired by is kids in Japan keep beetles as pets. And they so I thought that would be interesting, this idea that Kubo thought that his father had died and he'd actually been transformed into this creature. and that he would essentially kind of keep him like a pet. And then Monkey, there's a monkey character in Japanese mythology that actually is a demon fighter. And also the Netsuke, the little carved statue that Kubo had, I thought, what if he had this charm that his mother's soul would essentially go into it and become this thing that would protect him no matter what. So it really just came out of I can't explain the way my brain works. It's crazy sometimes. And I have to say, Mark Hames was who wrote the script. He and I worked together very closely, and I would just come up with this crazy stuff, and it kind of worked itself out over. We actually started. We hired Mark in January of 2012, and we started writing it, I think, in February of 2012 here in LA. We were doing that for 6 months, and he and I would just meet 3 days a week. And basically what happened is all of the stuff that I had read, all the stuff that had been in my brain since 2001 when I initially came up with the idea, started to come out in this way. So it was, I hate using this word because it's overused, but it's true in this case. It was very organic. It just kind of happened. And I thought it'd be much cooler to see a sword wielding monkey and this half beetle man that just seeing more humans.
Two warriors. It's the dynamic really works too. And like you said, that's sort of how it's related to your mother. And this is just an assumption. Would you mind telling me how the Moon King and the sisters came into it? Because I would think that you don't have an aunt who tries to kill you.
Yeah. No. What this was, you especially in fairy tales, there's such deep meaning to things. So you can say something that seems magical, and you can have this initial conflict, but I'm always looking to tell something that's a deeper story. So the idea, I actually have a whole backstory for how Kubo's parents met and what happened. And I always wanted this to feel like this big epic story, but really be a very simple tale, that it was about a family. It's about Kubo only really knowing his mother, always wanting a normal family, wanting a family. He gets that family, doesn't realize it, and then he finally realizes it, and it's too late. With grandfather and the sisters, the idea was that they are these characters from Japanese mythology that you have like sky princesses, which is a thing in Japanese mythology. And that the sky princess came down to earth and she fell in love with a human, and her father was not okay with that. Because why should she come down and sully herself with a human, a filthy human, which he kind of talks about in the film. And it alludes to a lot of things. So there is, you have, there's something similar that happens in Tolkien's in the Silmarillion, where you have the tale of Beren and Luthien, where you have an elf king and his daughter, an elven princess who marries a human. That's reflected again in Lord of the Rings. This idea, which I think is really just a metaphor for kind of interracial relationships. Some people aren't okay with that, and it manifests in this nasty way, and families are torn apart just because two people love each other. And I wanted that to be the kind of the deep backstory that triggered this whole thing, and that Kubo came out of that, and he's a combination of both human and this other being from another place.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I like that a lot. Cool. Yeah, like Romeo and Juliet, kind of. Hey, good job, editor.
Yeah.
In the comments, Alex the Menace would like to know, what are your influences for wanting to work in animation?
I always, of course, when I was a kid, I watched Warner Brothers cartoons, Bugs Bunny, things like that. Then I watched the fairy tales that Disney had created. So I was always influenced by that. My career actually started off. I was a biology major, and I was gonna go to medical school. That's what I wanted to do. And my dad actually noticed that I was getting good grades, but I didn't seem to be so interested in it. And so he asked me, he said, "What do you do? What do you want to do?" And I'd gone to Disney World that year and seen the animators working in the fish tank, as they called it. And I was like, man, if you could draw, because I'd always drawn my whole life. Man, if you could draw and make movies, that would be amazing. And so luckily I had understanding parents who when I said, you know what, I'd rather not go to medical school, I want to go to art school, they were okay with it. And I got accepted into Cal Arts, and the rest is history.
Oh, also, hi CalArts listeners. That's pretty neat. Were there any certain cartoons that inspired you?
I always loved Fantasia. I love Night on Bald Mountain in particular. I like the darker qualities of that. I love Pinocchio for the same reasons. That you could have a lot of fun, but you could tell a darker, deeper story.
Yeah.
You know, when you have the kids who are punished and they get turned into donkeys, that's really frightening. When the coachman shows up and he's taking children, that's not it's not light. It's heavy.
Yeah.
So I like those stories. Those are the things I lean to. And on the comedy side, I always love the timing and the humor in Warner Brothers cartoons more than like Mickey cartoons.
Yeah, I get that. I was a
and later you start to get to what's that?
Sorry, the
you get into like stop motion. Or its timing's out. What's up?
The Skype just went a little wonky. What did you say? Excuse me.
I was just talking about you know, as you go on after you're exposed to Disney and Warner Brothers, then you get into Jan Sponkmeyer and you get into you know, more, you get into Carolyn Leaf, you get into these different filmmakers, the Canadian Film Board, you start to get exposed more and they start to influence your work as well.
Yeah. Were there any certain stop motion movies that might have influenced Kubo?
I wouldn't say they didn't influence it. I would say live action influences me a lot more than animation. It's why, you know, I'm a huge Kurosawa fan, and it was one of the to the crew as we were boarding it. It's like, I like how he shoots things, I like how he composes some light shots. And Frank Passingham, who was the director of photography on the film, he and I had hours and hours of discussions about Kurosawa's work. David Lean, and there are the David Lean films like everyone knows, like Dr. Zhivago and Lawrence of Arabia, but I was also very heavily influenced by his takes, his adaptations of Oliver Twist and Great Expectations. You have young protagonists who basically have a whole world against them that they have to fight against. And then Guy Green shot those movies, and they're just beautifully photographed movies. So, yeah, I'm a huge fan of the earlier work of David Lean as well. And also comics, like you know, it's been brought up a few times, but Lone Wolf and Cub was a big influence on the film. Kamui, which is another Japanese manga, was a huge influence. Yeah, a lot of stuff.
Interesting. I am a Kurosawa fan myself. But I guess
favorite movie. What's your favorite one?
Seven Samurai. It's gotta be. There's like, it sounds cliche, but it's just gotta be. And you know, it's not
cliche. It's amazing. I watch Redbeard if you haven't seen it. It's one of my favorites. A lot of people don't. It's the last film he did with Mifune, and it's amazing.
Redbeard?
Yeah, Redbeard.
Redbeard. All right, interesting. So obviously, like we were talking about, you are interested in all these interesting Japanese. What's up with my voice? Japanese mythologies. One person on the internet who goes by the name of Gaijin Goomba made a connection between your movie Kubo and, I'm just gonna pronounce this wrong, the Princess Kayuga Japanese folklore, citing that Kubo's mom actually is Princess Kayuga, and that Kubo is a sequel to Princess Kayuga. And I don't want you to confirm or deny that this rumor is true or false, but did it have any influence on you? Or do you even know the story?
Well, it's Kaguya Hime, which is, it's Ghibli made a film based on a Japanese folktale, and Takahata-san, who's the director, he interpreted it in a certain way. And I'm familiar with that story. I certainly had read it, but there was no intentional. It's not a sequel. There's no. It's because that story doesn't have a talking monkey or a beetle creature in it either.
Yeah.
So, but there were definitely influences. But I would also say in that story, the Sky Maidens, you know, where Kaguya comes from, it's not like some evil kingdom. So yeah, all of those stories were a huge inspiration for this, but there was no intent to connect it directly.
All right. Sorry, Gage and Goomba. I still like your channel. So you, of course, the creator of Kubo, were not the director of Kubo. And actually, that's something that I'd like to know before I ask my next question. Was it hard, per se, to give up this thing that you'd had in your mind for so long?
Let me see. I was the original director on the film.
Mm-hmm.
I designed the main characters. I actually directed the voice cast for the film,
Yeah.
and I was the director 5 months into production on the film.
Oh, really?
So yeah, yeah.
Was that...
And we parted ways, and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
But I would say, yeah, it's like any time that you create something, especially that's so personal, that it is difficult. It wasn't. I will say this: it was not my choice. So
yeah, no need to interrogate you about that. But
yeah.
I guess my next question is: are you a fan of Chili T's music? Chili T being Travis Knight, the director of Kubo.
Let's see. I've only seen the one video.
Yeah.
And I will not confirm or deny that I'm a fan of Chili T's music.
I'm wearing my T-shirt under this right here, in case he... have you ever heard a Chili T song, Editor? No, no one. Oh, he has one that I can't think of off the top of my head. But Travis Knight, the director, is the son of some guy whose name I'm not going to remember off the top of my head, who is the CEO of Nike. And during the production of the movie, there was this contest to have these Kubo shoes made, and they were given out. And I guess my question is, do you have a pair of these highly sought-after shoes?
I do not have a pair of the. I have a pair of the Coraline Nikes, and on the Coraline ones are harder to get because they were only given to the crew, I believe.
Really?
The post that film, like with Paranorman Box Trolls and with Kubo, they were limited, but you could still find them. You could buy them. But with Coraline, the Coraline ones are rad because they have the stitching on it. They have buttons on them.
Really?
But no, I do not have a pair of the Kubo Nike shoes.
That is too cool. Like, that is pretty neat. So the film, and I hate to get serious, I hate to buckle down like this, but the film, when it was released, had a little bit of, this and that about it because, of course, it was a film that came out in 2016, and let's stop at that. And one of the things that a lot of people were throwing around is the word whitewashing, which everybody knows what that means. And even though a large majority of the cast was, of a nationality that wasn't Caucasian, a lot of people were upset that, Matthew McConaughey and Art Parkinson, being Caucasian people, voiced characters in a mostly Asian-themed movie. And would you like to address all this controversy that came out about it?
Yeah, I just, it's funny. I thought there would be more about it and I would see it, maybe because I wasn't at the studio at the time it was going down, but I answered this question at CTN this year. And because Jorge asked me the question. And I actually, when you're going through the process, you don't get to make all the decisions. Yeah. Half joking at one point, I said, "Hey, why don't we just do the whole film? We're Leica, right? Yeah. Let's do the whole film in Japanese, and we'll just have subtitles." There's no way they're going to do it because nobody here would go see the film. So I know from the point of view of the studio is it being a small studio, they want to have as many people see the movie as possible. Mm-hmm. And so they got the biggest names that they could. And I have to say this, in working with that cast, exceptional, top to bottom. Art Parkinson, Matthew McConaughey, Charlize Theron, they all did an incredible job on the film. I think those decisions are made because the studio wants more exposure for it. And unfortunately, the bigger question, which I think people are asking now too, is why aren't there more A-list Asian American actors? Why don't we have that? Because you certainly have it in other countries. Mm-hmm. So that was, I think, what drove the choice for the studio to go that direction. Yeah. I ultimately think, I think at this point it's kind of been proven. People always go after A-list stars. It doesn't matter, whether it's culturally accurate or not. Mm-hmm. And I think it's been proven time and time again. Nobody really cares who the voice cast is in an animated film. I have these discussions. I've had them year after year after year. If you look at the box office for Kubo, ultimately, you got to look at that. I don't think it brought people into theaters.
Yeah.
But all I can say is I'm very happy about the cast that we got. It's amazing.
Mhm.
Would I have liked that we could have cast some A-list Japanese actors? Yes, absolutely. Not ultimately my decision.
Yeah.
And but what I do find interesting though is that every Ghibli film that comes over here, when they cast the dub, they never hire Japanese American actors for it. They hire Caucasian actors for it, and it's now that it's happening the other way. Hopefully, Kubo has brought attention to it, and that's why people are talking about it.
Yeah.
And I think the discussion is warranted. So I'm actually glad that it's happening because it needs to happen. So I don't know if that answers it clearly, but that's
I get that. And and the thing with getting more Asian A-list celebrities is like you got George Takei. It doesn't really get much higher than that. I think you guys did a pretty good job.
Yeah, it's well, you in Japan. What I'm hoping in Japan is that because what our discussions were that we were getting an A-list Japanese cast when it went to Japan. I know that's finally been confirmed. I don't know if that's going to happen, but the idea is when you get over there that when you actually translate the Japanese, you're going to have the best Japanese cast you can. And I say none of this is an excuse. I'm just telling you the truth, unfortunately, of how. Look at Ghost in the Shell right now. It's I mean, I'm not playing Major Kusunaga from because then there's all kinds of rumors you're swirling about it. But the big talk that people have been saying is the film would not have been made had Scarlett Johansson not been cast in that role.
Yeah.
And some people will say, well, I actually personally would say, hey, the original film is good enough for me. Do I need to see a remake of it? Unfortunately, we're in this cycle of remaking films. So
yeah. Have you seen like the press stuff that's like the next Matrix?
No.
Yep. The original.
About Ghost in the Shell?
Yeah, the new Ghost in the Shell.
You mean the next Matrix from 20 years ago when it actually originally came out?
Before, I think the Wachowskis have actually said that Ghost in the Shell.
The Matrix.
Yeah. It's a little dicey. So let's change the subject immediately. In the comments, Dipper723, oh boy, would like to know if you have faith that this year's voters or people on the Oscar board will look past animated films in terms of their appeal to children and more of what their actual content is.
I hope so. There's been a lot of kind of, I wouldn't call it data, but every year they kind of do this roundup in the LA Times, and they anonymously interview Academy voters and ask them, and unfortunately most of them either they won't watch the animated films or they'll just ask their grandkids or their kids what they thought was best, and that's kind of where it lands. So once it goes in, my father-in-law is in the Academy, and when you're getting the nominees, it's only pretty much only animation people are voting on it. But when it goes out to a larger body of Academy membership, it's one small category of films that they have to watch, and they got watch a lot of films. Mm-hmm. I wish animation directors were allowed and recognized into the DGA. They are not, which really sucks for directors in animation.
Yeah.
I wish that when you look at an industry where I think 4 out of the 5 top grossing films this year are animated films, and if you include Jungle Book, which was it was an animated film.
Yeah, remake.
They're pulling in all this box office. They're pulling in all this money for the studios, but again and again and again, they're the general public looks at them as children's medium. But I think it's because that's what the studios are making.
Yeah.
I just this weekend on the same day I watched Lego Batman and Red Turtle. You couldn't have a greater contrast between those two things. Red Turtle blew me away. To me, that's I think families can watch it, but it's also you can watch it as an adult and appreciate different things about it, about this discussion of life in that film. I just wish those kinds of films were getting a larger exposure but I don't know if there's an audience for it or not.
There seems
to be all over the world except here.
Yeah. And that sort of is the segue to the next question. Do you think that there could ever be like a surgence in adult animated features, especially after the release of Sausage Party?
Well, you had Sausage Party. Everybody said, like they said it when South Park came out. They said it when the Beavis and Butthead movie came out. But those films well, I think they're funny, and I had a good time at them. They're all comedies. I haven't seen. They're all kind of raunchy comedies. I haven't seen a film, an animated film, do well that had a little bit more edgier content to it. I certainly would love to see that. I mean, even if a Ghibli film made more money here, those films like Spirited Away made like $250 million just in Japan, but outside of Japan, nobody really saw it. They were aware of it, but general audiences, it didn't really get a large release here.
So say that, for instance, as it's now nominated for, I think, 14 awards, La La Land comes out, but instead of being live action, it's animated. Do you think if it's completely the same movie, everything's the same, characters, everything's the same except it's just fully animated, do you think people would see it?
I think they'd see it, but they would just be like, "Oh, look, it's another Disney musical."
Interesting.
They wouldn't. It wouldn't be. It was special because a live action musical hadn't been made for years. Ignoring the fact that animation musicals continue to happen all the time, or on a fairly regular basis, with Frozen and Tangled, and then there will be Frozen 2, and then the new Tangled TV series has music in it. I think you're gonna. I don't think people would have viewed it in the same way because it wasn't as much of a novelty that way.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. So in addition to coming up with all these ideas and movies and stuff, and a project right now that we kind of can't talk about, you're also a very well-known character designer in the animation web. You did a lot of work for Craig McCracken being one of them. And one thing that I'd like to know as somebody who enjoys drawing characters themselves, what do you think makes a good character design, or do you think that there's not one thing you can point to?
I don't think you can. I don't think you can point to anything. I can't. At this point, I have a gut reaction to certain things. To me, some really great character design work that got overlooked this year was Alex Uhas's character design for the stop motion segments of The Little Prince. Mark Osborne's The Little Prince. Peter Seb did incredible work on the CG side too, but Alex just blew me away. And those, I couldn't compare that to anything. I know he's probably drawing influence from Saint-Exupéry. And Mark, did Mark tell you where he had the idea for why they were made from paper?
Was it editor, do you remember when Mark told us that? He might have. He told us so much stuff about that.
It was an old drawing that Exupéry had thrown into the garbage, and an assistant had pulled out, I think. And Mark saw the original drawing. It had all these wrinkles on it. He said, "Wow, that's interesting. What if we made the characters out of paper?" And that kind of thinking to me it's different thinking. Now, I loved what Shiun Kim and Corey Loftus and Jin Kim and those guys did on Zootopia. I loved what Craig Kelman and Tim Lamb did on Trolls. What Jen and those guys did on Moana. I don't think you can boil it down to anything, because if I were to look at, a lot of the way that they build a CG model of a character now, it's perfectly symmetrical. When you model it, you're modeling it to be perfectly symmetrical, and it's not going to stay symmetrical because once you start to act, characters automatically go out of symmetry. Working with Henry Selick on Coraline, I just come off of working on Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, and I actually did freelance on Foster's the whole time I was working on Coraline. So I had to switch styles in the middle of the day. So that Craig's style is a slick, clean graphic style. Henry wants it to be a little bit dirtier, a little bit grungier. He doesn't want anything that's symmetrical. Eyes have to be symmetrical. There needs to be a twist to it. I think there has to be something appealing about the design that asks you. For me, when I look at a character and I'm starting to ask what the story behind the character is, then it's successful to me. It has nothing to do with, it's like whatever story you're telling with the drawing, and they're little, I try to work different details into costumes and things. It's funny because there are some fan theories about characters I've designed out there that are actually true.
Whoa.
But you think costume tells a story.
Yeah.
The attitude, pose tells a story.
Yeah.
What their cultural background tells a story. To me, those are successful character designs that aren't just the generic. And to me, you really always want to caricature something specific.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to draw a lion character design, I want to go look at a lion. There are a million different ways that you can caricature that lion.
Mm-hmm.
But, please look at a lion first and base it on what your interpretation of the lion is, rather than just imagining a lion in your head and looking at, a million, like looking at, like I can name like 30 blogs and I couldn't tell the designer one from another because they're all kind of following the same thing instead of kind of stepping out on their own. I say that as a guy who most of my work has been production work.
Yeah.
But I've had to shift my style from project to project. So, I just say everything that you can do to tell a story with your design, that to me is the most successful design.
Yeah, I can get that. Because, personally, it's more of there's not one thing you can point to and say, this is what a good character design is. If you're drawing a grumpy guy, you draw him, his body has to have a certain energy to it. You can't say one thing that'll work universally. It sort of applies to what you're creating. That's what I think, at least. In the comments, Mr. Switch would like to know, do you think Kubo will get a sequel? And if so, do you know what it would be, I guess?
Kubo will not get a sequel because I think Travis Knight has very publicly said that they don't do sequels at Laika. I did a drawing. I posted a time lapse on Tumblr and on Instagram of a grown-up Kubo because I actually have ideas for what you could do with Kubo as a teen and as an adult that I think would be pretty incredible. Like, how has he developed his gift at this point? What kind of things that he create? And in a very early version of Kubo, he actually creates a paper army. And I had this thing where he comes flying into it when he's in the battle with his grandfather, and a bunch of sisters who are constellations come out of the sky. You can already hear, like, anybody who's an executive or producer already hearing the budget that this would actually, how much this would cost, hearing me describe this. There's going to be a big battle, and Kubo flies in on the back of this eagle that's made out of paper, and as he approaches the ground, it folds and flips and transforms into a gorilla that's charging through. And because I was like, man, paper can transform, and that's a big kind of this sub theme in the film is transformation. His mother transforms, his father transforms, his grandfather is transformed at the end. And so I think you could tell a saga of stories about Kubo as he's growing up. But I don't think it's going to happen.
I need just a moment to process how my mind just exploded when you said that. Eagle, gorilla, charges, army. Wow. Okay. Anyway, in the comments, Paul Rosigno, hi Paul, would like to know, will you be there if at the Oscar ceremonies? Oh yeah, that's in like a few days, isn't it?
Yeah, I will not be at the Oscar ceremonies.
Oh, you can spend it like I'm gonna spend it, probably eating ice cream and sitting around.
Yeah,
that'd be pretty good.
Chilling out.
Yeah. So like we were talking about character designs, and I'd actually like to go back to it for a second. Would you say that there is a certain character, just comics, cartoons, movies, whatever, live action, animated, it doesn't matter, that you just adore their design no matter what it is and what it is about it that you enjoy?
Yeah, absolutely. There is Ultraman, who is one of my favorite superhero designs ever, an old Japanese character. I have an obsession with I have a full-size Ultraman at my house. Gatchaman, which was Battle of the Planets when I was a kid, G-Force, and they are a 1970s anime show where this group of teens had a superhero team and they turned into these bird-inspired characters.
Yeah.
Those are like those stuck in my brain, like those. And then I'll segue into how this is connected to Kubo in a way. And then in Lone Wolf and Cub, there are three brothers, the Ben Tenrai, and they're these three ninja brothers with these wide brimmed hats. Now, I always wanted Gotcha Man toys, which they eventually released, and I always wanted toys of Ben 10 Rye, and they never made them. So for Kubo, the sisters by Gotcha Man, so that's why they have feathered cloaks. They have a bird theme, and they have the wide brimmed hats and the samurai swords from the Ben 10 Rye from Lone Wolf and Cub. So those designs were so influential to me that they inspired me to reinterpret them and put them in the movie in the form of the sisters.
I always saw the sisters, and I saw V from the V for Vendetta. That's just a little thing that went on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's the mask, but those masks were actually were based on No Mask from Japanese theater.
Mm-hmm. So you were talking about old Japanese shows you'd like to watch. Have you ever seen Johnny Sacco? The Johnny Sacco?
I have.
You have? Those are probably my favorite, like, old character designs, like the giant ball with like all the spikes on it.
Yeah.
That one's pretty neat. I could just ask for hours about character designs, I guess. It's
I mean, I've got stacks of things all around, like the books behind me. I'm in my studio, which I'm trying to get set up again so I can actually write in here more. It's like I have whole walls of books of, I've got Ronald Searle books here, Al Hirschfeld, Bill Peet, Charlie Harper.
Yeah. On
the other side, I have all of my Art of Ghibli books. I have books on 1960s, 1970s Japanese.
Yeah.
But also like Gustave Klimt, Jean-Léon Gérôme, and what are considered more fine artists or painters that I draw inspiration from as well.
Mm-hmm. You seem like the kind of guy who would be really cool to have a Japanese monster movie discussion with, and that we will have actually. Do you have any favorite Japanese monster movies?
I do.
Mm-hmm.
I think the original Godzilla is a favorite. I also love Destroy All Monsters. I'm a huge fan of that one. That's when it starts to get a little bit more campy.
Yeah.
But then you have all these monsters in there.
Mm-hmm.
I love the original King Kong. But those, as like kaiju films go, I think the original 1954, right? Godzilla. And then Destroy All Monsters. Those are my two biggies. How about you?
I love the Johnny Sacco one, and I guess it seems like a millennial thing to say, but I saw Pacific Rim a while ago, and maybe it's just like the complete neon of it, but it's just great. I just love the aesthetic of the entire film.
I don't say what I actually really appreciated in that film is the camera work that was done during the big battles. And I don't know this for sure. I'll have to ask Jorge to ask Guillermo for me.
Mm-hmm.
But from what I understood is he didn't do anything crazy with the CG camera. He had it built like if he was going to mimic a techno crane shot. So there was no shot that he couldn't get in either a helicopter or a techno crane or any kind of other practical camera, which is why I thought the battles were really clear, even though they took place at night during the rain.
Mm-hmm.
You could always track what was happening. But I had a lot of fun with Pacific Rim, and to see somebody do a giant, monster movie like that, when I think we need to see more of them. I'm very excited about it. Ultraman again. Ultraman fought a monster of the week every week, so that was a huge one too.
Oh, someone in the comments. The new Spider-Man movie? Someone in the comments would like to know what you think about the new Spider-Man movie. Which new Spider-Man movie?
The live action one or the new animated one that they've announced at Sony?
The animated one from Sony. That Peter Ramsey, good friend of mine, is working on. Hi, Peter.
Yeah. Peter is a pal of mine, and I just saw Peter last week because I just started at Sony last week on my next project. And I am super pumped. I love, and they have confirmed this now, that Miles Morales is going to be the Spider-Man in this film. I know as much as you guys know. I know whatever they've announced.
Yeah.
So that is very exciting to me. That Bob and Peter are directing is exciting to me. That Phil Lord wrote the script for it is very exciting to me. So, and there are things that I've seen that I can't talk about that I will say, be excited, folks.
Yeah. Sorry, everybody, but you're gonna see the movie anyway. Come on, it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
One thing actually, I really do like that the new Spider-Man is African American, so to speak. And one thing that's really been showing up a lot lately in cartoons, be it Steven Universe, Kubo, even. The thing is that recently, diversity in animated shows, and not only diversity meaning there's an Asian kid and a white kid on the screen at the same time, more of a little bit what you're talking about is interracial coupling, interracial friendships, people just not drawing attention to the fact that they're from a different ethnicity has really been something that's grown lately, and your story is part of a contributing factor to that. Do you feel sort of proud that you've helped broaden the horizons lately?
I try to be conscious of it. I just wrote something for Disney that has an African American mother and a white father, and that's just how it is. You don't make a big deal out of it.
Yeah.
I think as much as creators can do it, they should. But what I would like to see, much more importantly, is that it wasn't a white guy like me doing it that I actually was seeing. Like, I'm very excited that a friend of mine, Elizabeth Ito, over at Cartoon Network, I think she's creating a show right now.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see her voice. Peter Ramsey being on Spider-Man and directing a character that's half African American, half Hispanic.
Mm-hmm.
Very exciting to me. I do what's right for the story and what I would like to see. I have a young daughter. I want her to have positive female role models, so I write them into my scripts. I try as much as I can to kind of write in an authentic way. But as a viewer and an audience member, I'm much more excited to hear. Like, I just saw Moonlight; it blew me away. And the director of that film, he's the only one that could have told that story because he came from that place.
Yeah,
it's very specific to where. So what I would like to see happen more in animation, I think it's starting to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Is you're seeing a much more diverse group of filmmakers make these films, but we have a long way to go there.
Yeah.
And I'm with Women in Animation Group to see that number rise, but I also want to see a lot more diverse voices creating animation on a larger scale. You see it on a smaller scale with independent films. I want to see it on a larger scale and I want them to be telling stories that are unique and I want that from any filmmaker. I want them to tell the story. It doesn't matter where they came from or what their cultural background is or what their ethnicity is.
Yeah.
I want something that's specific and personal to them, which is why I did what I did with Kubo. I was attracted to Japanese fairy tales, but it's a deeply personal story I was trying to tell, and I want to see that in any film that I'm going to watch. And that they talked about it in Zootopia, I think is great. That Disney's doing it's great. But that's what I would say is I don't want to sit here and pat myself on the back for anything I would do. I would say that we still have a long way to go, and we need to work toward that.
And kind of based on that, what do you think the future of animation looks like? Is it all CG? Is it all VR? What do you think it's like?
As many times as people try and predict these things and what they think it's going to be, you have somebody that kind of breaks the mold. So I look at Red Turtle. I think it was the first time that Michael Dudok-David actually worked on a Cintiq. He animated, I'm not sure what software he used, but he didn't animate on paper for that film. But it's a hand-drawn film. And it moved me. It was beautiful. In Japan, almost everything they make there is still hand-drawn. There's no signs of stopping hand-drawn animation there. I mean, Ghibli is slowed down a little bit, but you also have Hosoda, who did Boy and the Beast, and The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, all hand-drawn. Then you have Leica continuing to make stop-motion films. You have Aardman continuing to make stop-motion films. You have smaller productions. You have why is my brain the Charlie Kaufman stop-mo film?
Anomalisa,
Yeah, Anomalisa. Like that, you're seeing these different things. So I don't think it's going to be one or the other. I think as many CG successes as there have been massive failures, including at the big studios. I think it's what people are going with right now. I think it'll happen for a long time, but there's still all these other things that are being made. All TV animation is still hand-drawn mostly.
Yeah.
So I think it's wide open for everything. I'm most excited to see how people are going to use technologies to do old things in the same way that Leica does these hybrid films and work together, but also the way that they're using digital technologies to do hand-drawn films as well.
It's very interesting, and unfortunately we are almost done, but there is actually a question in the comments that I actually found very interesting. And we don't like to get too political on this show, everybody's views are their views, but this question asks, does the current political climate stoke the fires of creativity, or do you think that it's distracting creative people from creating?
I think it's stoking creative fires. All of my friends are reacting in very positive ways, and they're being very vocal with their art. What you can do with a single image single images have very strong emotional responses. That's why you have political cartoonists still doing amazing work. And I think it's the reason that we tell stories with conflict, right? It's because conflict is interesting.
Yeah.
And as much conflict as there seems to be right now, it's kind of stoked the fire under people to be creative. What I'm very interested in seeing, though, too, is it's very easy to be vitriolic in this imagery, and I've done some myself with the current political climate. But I also think art is a great way to build bridges and understanding between people, and to shorten that gap and that distance. Because I think if we get
what'd you just say? You died out a little bit.
And I actually there. Oh, I was just saying. I don't know what part I was waxing philosophical for a second. I was just saying that as much as it's easy to do something that's a little bit more vitriolic, you can also do something that's very positive and supportive, and I've seen that too. Bridget Berger just did this amazing image, I think for the Women's March, of all these hands raised in the air. It was amazing, this beautiful image. And like I'm seeing I'm seeing positive. I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it. It's amazing. Beautiful things are happening right now. So I don't think anybody's dampened. I think people are kind of, Jorge did that awesome T-shirt, taco truck on every corner. I wear it proudly. I love that T-shirt. Somebody told me they wore it to a protest the other day, which was super rad. So I think you're getting people that are actually getting stirred up, who may have had their head too much in production and work and not doing as much, and they're doing things outside of it to make a statement politically.
And let's say that there's somebody out there watching this who only an hour into the interview realized that their tie looks a lot more like a bib than a tie, and they're wondering how to get into the animation industry. What advice would you give them?
The advice I would give is, to me, the best way to get yourself noticed is to just get good work. There are a lot better ways and more ways to actually get your work out there than there were when I was getting into it. But there's also there's a lot more work out there. So you really have to distinguish yourself. But I think if you do good work, like I know, for example, especially with designers, some producers will just go through blogs and they find people that way. When I did it, like I had to get my portfolio in the right hands and go into a big room of a bunch of other black portfolios, and people would never see those things. So you're a lot more visible now, and you can do it. I went to Cal Arts. I thought Cal Arts was incredible. I was at school with guys like Shane Prigmore and Pete Sohn and Devin Crane and Jorge Gutierrez, who pushed me to do better work and stronger work. Pete Browngardt was in my class, Audie Harrison, all this different work, and we pushed each other in a very positive way to do it. You don't have to go to Cal Arts, but I loved it. I wouldn't trade that experience for anything. But you have Art Center, you have RISD, you have schools all over the world, but you also have your personal voice. Yeah. And so I think you find what it is that you want to do and put a website up, YouTube, do a short film. Like those are all things that you guys have that we didn't have. I sound like such an old fart right now, but it's because I am.
Back in your day. Well, thank you for that, Shannon.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Shannon Tindle is the character designer extraordinaire, movie monster junkie, who is the creator of Kubo and the Two Strings and the Google VR project on Ice, which you can download for free on the Google Spotlight Story app, which I think I said right, on the App Store. Link in the description. Wait, can we do that? I don't know if that's a thing, if you can link the App Store. I digress. Shannon, thank you so much for coming on today. If you have not donated, please, not you, Shannon, I'm just saying to the audience, if you have not donated, please check the description. Would you like to say anything before we sign off?
Thank you, Gruppeteer, so much for having me. This is amazing. As soon as Mark and Jorge told me I had to do it, I said, absolutely, let's do it. I think it's amazing that you're doing something for your friend. And I would say to everybody out there, support fresh, original ideas. Hollywood will make more of them if you support them. Go out, get off your butts, watch those movies.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next episode of Cartoons vs. Cancer, which will be episode 20. Wow! We'll be with a guest, what I'm not going to tell you guys yet. It's a secret. It might be a really big one. Maybe I haven't scheduled it yet. Hey, don't worry about it. We will see you guys then. Stay for any updates. Kubo and the Two Strings is probably available on, like, DVD or something. Go buy it. We will see you guys later. Thank you for watching, and good